Good morning, wherever you are. I keep saying this, wherever you are in the world. Good evening, good afternoon. It's always good to be with you. Phoebe, how are you today?
It is a bright and brilliant morning, Graham. Thank
Oh,
you,
wow.
everyone.
Right.
Yes.
Mohammed, how are you today?
I am happy because I am starting also a whole week of holidays. Yeah, it's time to have some rest. It's very
Time,
important.
time to have some rest. Okay, this is good. So we've got to look after ourselves. Mohammed, I'm going to suggest that you give us the topic that we should talk about today.
Of course, it was no secret that we all agreed before we start that today we're going to talk about leaders and how do they take care of themselves, leaders and self-care. You know, this idea of holidays coming, I'm embracing it. And I am on a project of leadership, although I enjoy every day of it. And that's also taking care of my passion and my profession to do the same things I love. But despite all of that, you also need to take care of yourself. I mean, yourself is saying, good job, Mohammed. It's time to refuel. It's time to rejuvenate. It's time to, yeah, get some rest for you. And if we don't do that, I doubt how much we can actually go back to the field and help others. And it applies to leaders as well.
Absolutely. Phoebe, what do you think about leaders and self-care?
Yeah, Graham, one aspect which we all know is, leadership is everyone's business. And in that aspect, we know we are, I will call that we are the instruments through which the leadership behaviors are applied and practiced. So how often we take care of ourselves and our mental state, our body taking enough rest. So these all impact the way in which we are able to involve in our regular life as well as in our work life. So that is where self-care comes in. And self-care can take different forms so that we can be more effective in our interventions as an individual leader. So that is making this topic more important for today's discussion.
Yeah, look, mental health is critical. And of course, the first and most important person that's got to look after themselves is you. Let me just share with you, as some of you know, I'm also a counsellor. And I know that there are certain questions that counsellors ask, and here's one of them. And this question I often ask, you often get a stumble or a hesitation in the answer. I ask, who is the most important person in your life? And sometimes they might say, oh, my mother, I've got to look at my mother. I've got to look after my mother. My mother's very ill, or she's elderly, or my father. Yeah, sure. So who's the most important person in your life? They are. No, excuse me. You are the most important person in your life. You are. If you don't look after yourself, how can you possibly be the best person to look after them? You've got to look after number one. And of course, the other cliched line is, what do you do when the oxygen mask drops down? So they say, I've never had it happen, but when we see the safety demonstration, and they always say, if the oxygen mask drops down, take the mask for yourself before you help anybody else, because you can't help anybody unless you're looking after you. And I'm really pleased that Mohammed's brought this to our attention today, because leaders have to look after themselves before they can look after effectively the people who they are leading. So how can they do
Right.
this, Mohammed?
Yeah, right. Exactly. The how is what people are waiting. And our viewers, before they just jump to conclusion that we are going to give a list of self-care, advice, which probably they are waiting for how to take care of your body, how to take care of your time and your etc. I want to just go a step back where also I heard from you, Graham, something that struck with me. I mean, maybe self-care outside your leadership position starts from your leadership position. It's when you actually run your team, I mean, lead your team, sorry, in a way that really releases all the tensions, reduces your micromanagement, delegate things to others, trust each other, enable others to act. I mean, of course, you leave and go home with your mind free and your heart is open for your family and other ones. So maybe the first step is, what do you do when you're with your team? Leading your team might affect your other half of life outside. I think that's a thought-provoking thing, which maybe, Graham, you can help us on this more.
Yeah, look, absolutely. But what that also ties into is emotional intelligence. But let me just reinforce one of the points that you were alluding to, which is really critical to this. When a lead, and we talked about this in an earlier conversation about leadership and stress, and when leaders have a really good relationship with the team, when the leaders are doing what we call exemplary leaders, and we're getting great results, there is no stress, or there should be very little stress, because the team is really working very well. The followers are all committed to the end result. You're helping them grow and to develop, and that you're all moving forward to the vision that you've discussed with them, and everybody is helping everybody else. Now, there's an element to this which I talked about a moment ago, or mentioned a moment ago, which is emotional intelligence. And so part of this is when the leader, or remember, Phoebe said leadership is everyone's business. So when everybody on the team individually might say up to themselves, I've had a tough day. I need to let go of this before I go home. I don't need to take this negative energy or stress with me. I need to let it go, because I don't want to walk into my home where my beautiful wife and my children are, and to carry any baggage or unnecessary emotional impact on them. They don't deserve anything that I may have accumulated negatively during the day. I want to be a leader in my own home as well as being the leader in the workplace. And in the workplace, I should be managing my emotions. I should be having a really good relationship with my team and not having any real issues as sometimes managers do. And of course, managers can convey stress to other people, and they build up stress and mental issues for other staff members because of the pressure that they place, because of the lack of commitment, the lack of involvement, the lack of respect, the lack of a concern for other people. Just get the job done. And this impacts negatively not only on the people who this conversation is directed to, but it impacts on the individual themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe, how are you feeling about what I've just said?
No, I'm just reflecting on what you said, and what I like to bring at this point is on the values which we practice in our workplace, as an individual in an organizational setting. Quite often what we observe is when I just want to ask a question like, when do we start feeling stress increasing in our body? It happens when we see that the values are either not practiced or someone is not respecting our values in our personal or organizational life. I like to bring that, we are all embodying what we do. And quite often it starts accumulating in our body in the form of mental stress. And that is where we always, as you mentioned, Graham, the emotional intelligence part comes in. Well, am I looking into my own body, how the body is reacting at various situations, what the body is telling me, and are we listening to that?
Yep.
And are we trying to communicate that concerns in our workplace, in our family situations, where That is where we often call that open conversations on areas where I find it difficult. In the previous one of our discussion, we said sometimes we have to say in our vulnerability that, okay, these are the stressful situations, not knowing what happens, which may be, but imagine that if I keep it within myself as a leader, not conveying it to my team, the next close network, who are the next senior leaders within my network or my peers, no one is knowing that. And it starts accumulating more what we call stress. We call it that pressure cooker environment, which is creating. And that is where, people are unable to convey as a leader, this is what I am facing. I need help. It can be through an external coach. I need help. This is where a situation I am in. Yeah. And this is an opportunity to share those things, because if we don't share, no one knows. We don't find a solution if we don't share that.
So I want to just make a couple of points about emotional intelligence here, and it's related very much to what you were just saying, Phoebe. When leaders develop emotional intelligence, and firstly, emotional intelligence is recognizing in the moment what the emotions are in you that are impacting on you. How are you feeling now when a particular thing happens? When someone says something to you, how do you feel? Recognizing that immediately. And then being able to deal with that if it's a negative emotion, not allowing that emotion to continue on and not allowing it to affect the conversation that you're having or to be passed on to others. We don't want you to be a carrier or a spreader of like a disease, as some people spread diseases even though they don't, the disease may not affect them. In a similar sort of way, people can spread stress even though they are not necessarily feeling it themselves. So if a leader is, and we're all leaders, is emotionally intelligent, aware of the emotions that they are feeling and then managing those emotions, then we're going to get better results. But I want to be a little bit more specific in this, and I want to say that the leader at all levels who is well able to read and recognize the emotions of other people, then we're going to get some good results. And I know this is about self-care, this discussion, but I just want to make this point as well. So if I notice as a leader that one of my team seems to be under some difficulty emotionally, mentally, whatever, not focused, and I'm just reading their body language and listening to the way they're saying things, and I'm thinking, I think he's a little stressed or she's a little bit concerned. I, as the leader, might just simply go over and say, hi there, how you doing? How you doing today? And those simple words and the tone of voice usually connects with that person that they have identified, or rather recognized that I have identified that they are feeling a little stress. And they might say to me, well, it's I've had a few issues at home. I can then, as a leader, say, do you want to talk about it? I'm here to talk anytime. Or are you okay? No, I'll be okay, but thanks. Anyway, okay, that's fine. That short discussion, I guarantee, even though we're not conducting therapy, no way, I know that that exchange will change the emotional response of the individual that I've had that conversation with. So let's be aware now of self-care. And this is the leader recognizing that they are feeling some stress, that they are feeling some anxiety. And it might be a matter of them just saying to someone in the team, I just want to say, I might be looking like I'm really angry or upset or whatever. I'm really not. I've just had a couple of things go on for me and I'm not so comfortable. But I tell you what, I am now just going to go and take a walk. I'm just going to walk around the office floor, or go down to the next level and go for a walk, or go outside and get some fresh air. But I'll be okay, because I might recognize that just doing that is going to help me. It's this little bit of a break away that I feel is necessary, appropriate, just for a few minutes, that I just move myself out of that environment. Go and look at the sun. Go and change the environment, just to say, I'm doing okay. I really am doing okay. So what other thoughts might you have about this, Mohammed?
Yeah, in addition to the things you need to do when things are not okay. You need also to have a plan for when the things are okay. I mean, when there's no actually any emergency or urgency. One of the things I learned is the me time. Instead of giving exact a description, it's the me time. And my fitness instructor years back, all right, when I couldn't make it to the fitness or difficulty, he said to me, "This is your time. I know you're a parent. I know you're taking care of lots of things, but you need to take care of yourself. And when you do the exercise, it's your time. So it can be the exercise you promise yourself so that your body stays healthy as possible. It might be that reading a book that you really don't want to miss, because as a leader you are learning and improving, and I advise you to read the Leadership Challenge, by the way. Okay.
Yes. 7th edition.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Maybe it's that time and you want to put this down, put this aside and go solve something else. Hey, remember, you are not at work now, and I don't want you just to put out fire. Just think of your me time and do what you ought to do now. Things will be in place and you will have time to do them. So the me time, it's according to you. You define it. What's the me time?
Can I share a little secret with you right now?
It won't be a secret after we publish this, but yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, maybe I won't share it with you. You're going to tell people. So here's what's going to happen when we have finished our conversation today. When we finish this conversation today, I'm going to go for a walk, which I do every day. That's my me time. And for me, it's better if I have one in the morning and I have one in the afternoon. And it's better for me if I get as close as I can to 10,000 steps a day. This is me time. It's physical exercise for the body, but it is also great for the mind, right? This me time, I really have been doing this for so many years, and I find great value in doing this. And I'm not antisocial, but I don't encourage others to come with me, because for me, it's not a conversation fest. For me, it is this thing called me time, and it's physical, but it's also mental, right? So don't tell anybody, because it's our little secret. But when this conversation is over, I will be putting on my shoes that I take with my walking, and off I go. Phoebe, tell me about self-care. What else can we do as leaders?
Yeah, another aspect which we have to, as leaders, have to look into is what are the assumptions which we hold, One thing which often we see, we are on assumptions, not testing the assumptions, expressing it out in the here and now with our team. When there are challenges, what assumptions are you holding as a leader? And what assumptions, how can we test that with the group which I am in? And quite often, because in many workplaces, what we see is there is no personal connection. Connection means I don't know my fellow colleague.
Yeah.
I haven't, for example, as a person, one thing which we have to see as individuals, our work life starts probably, let us say, from age 20 to, let us say, age 60. And we are spending most of our time outside our home with our fellow colleagues. Now, if we don't create a connection, that is another domain where, as leaders, we should be also looking into. How can I build and know my people?
Yep.
Whether at home as at work.
Yeah.
And sharing that, these are some of my assumptions in my heart. These are, is it right? Let me know what your thoughts are. And that also help to reduce the burden which sometimes people feel in the here and now. Graham, sorry.
Yeah, and look, it's important when we know the colleagues that we're working with, when we have the relationship that extends, and it must extend beyond the framework of the office that we are in. This is not getting deeply, intrusively personal. This is about valuing the relationship that we have, that we know what's going on in their private life. We know that what stresses there might be. We're not being intrusive at all.
Yeah.
But we have a knowledge of what's going on just because we care about these people. When we show that we care, that's what leaders do, we get great results. People don't feel, and we wouldn't want them to feel, that we're being intrusive in their personal life. Not at all. But when we show that we care and we say, hey, how are things going? You've been under some pressure with your son doing his final year exam. Phoebe, I wonder how that has been for you, you might say. And as it turned out, Phoebe's son did really well in his final year exam. But parents can feel that stress, can't they? And if the leader in the workplace recognises that and says, how are you going? How are you going with your son's exams? Is it doing okay? This is about this is encouraging self-care as well, because you can imply to them that they're going to look after themselves. You know that there are stresses that they are feeling, and they're going to look after themselves. So we've got to be encouraging this so much. Mohammed?
Yeah, Phoebe. Yeah, go ahead, Phoebe.
Yeah, so just to supplement that point which Graham mentioned was also, self-care by saying no, and no to things which doesn't matter in the moment, saying no which are not, and making it clear this is not our priority right now.
Oh.
And that ability to say no to things is also something which we may have to practice in our workplace. Over to you, Mohammed.
Yeah, let me just make one point. Every time management book that I have read over the years, which there hasn't been 1,000, but there's been quite a few, the statement "learn to say no" is there. Clearly, we are not going to say no. We're not going to say no, but the book say learn to say no. What they're really saying is learn not to accept everything that is asked of you. Learn to actually negotiate or discuss another option. So that's an important part of any workplace situation, where you can negotiate or discuss rather than accepting everything that you're asked to do, because that builds the pressure on you as it builds on leaders. Oh, I've got to do it. Oh my gosh, I've got to do it. No. Mohammed.
Which is exactly was my point, which I shoulda do, right? My nutritionist, my behavioral nutritionist at one point said to me, she wanted to dive deeper on my habits around food and gatherings. And she said, what is the thing you do for yourself? I kept mentioning, she said, that's not for yourself. And I said, okay, I sit with the family on the couch. We watch TV together. And she said, that's not for you. You're doing it because you're a dad and you should do this. And you should be around your kids, blah, 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 blah. I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm talking about where is the time that there is no should around it.
Yes.
That is the time for yourself. And if you cannot find that time, guess what? Food will be the solution, And she was very good in finding out why I didn't have time for myself. So listen, leaders, you are responsible at work and you're responsible at home. That responsibility you need to just lift for few little time, like the oxygen mask that you have to take time for you. You need that full, pure time for yourself, no matter if it's minutes, hours, or days. You deserve it and need it. It's for you to be better leader and better parent and better family person.
I want to pick up on one thing that you just said, and I think most of you, and certainly a lot of people who know me, know how important words are to me. The correct words, the right word that we use, the semantics. What we say impacts so much on what we're thinking. And as a counselor and therapist and a coach, I often work on the words that people choose to use. Sometimes just changing that word to a slightly different word gets a different result. And I'm thinking specifically of what your coach or your counselor said. therapist about what you should do. You're with your children. Yes, you should be a dad. You should be doing this. And then you realize that there are things that you should be doing for yourself. I'm going to change the should in that case. I'm going to say that not should I do this, but must. I must do this for me, right? I should do this to my children and if my family, watch television, spend time with them. I should do that because I'm a father. But I'm going to change that should when it comes to what I should do for me. I must take time for me. This is critical. This is the oxygen mask coming down.
Beautiful.
If I look after me, it is a must. And define for you how much that or what that is. You might say, I must have 10 minutes every day where I do this, or I must have half an hour where I meditate, or I must have 15 minutes where I do yoga, whatever. But this for me then becomes non-negotiable. This is looking after you. There is nothing selfish in doing this. There is nothing selfish in looking after you as an individual. Of course not. In many ways, it's selfless, because if I'm being selfish in this context, how can I help me and others? You know, I've got to take care of myself so that I can take care of others as well. So
I have to mention this example, please. Thank you, friends. You know, a COO I was coaching recently for her communication and public speaking. Suddenly she said, Muhammad, I can't make it this week. And then after 2 weeks, she said, you know where I was? I went to Paris. I attended a high course for leaders, boot camp, blah, 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 blah. And she was really someone else. I learned a lot. From that, I am a different person, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so sometimes the me time can be something upgrading myself, because at work you are helping others, enabling others, sending others to courses, teaching others, coaching others. Hey, you also need that little bit of spot to improve yourself the way you want it, where you want it, the time you want it, and choose exactly the program you wanted. Leave everything behind, take that trip, and attend that conference you wanted it badly, or that course you wanted it badly. That's another me time you shouldn't miss.
I'm going to give,
you
talk about me time being even just 10 minutes a day, perhaps. Like me going for a walk, it'll be 40 minutes or so. Maybe sometimes it's longer, for an hour. But I want to talk now about give you two examples of a much bigger time frame where two women, these women both happen to be Bahrainis. They both happen to be very successful Bahraini women leaders. I won't name them, but I'll give you two examples. One of them said, you know, there are times when I just say, I've got to go to Umrah. Now, this is obviously going to be relevant to people who are of the Islamic faith. And they say, I've got to go. And she said, I'll say to a friend, come on, we're going over to Mecca. And she says, this is just such important time for me, she said. She has a very senior position. She said, I go for a week. And she said, it's just rejuvenating for me. Another woman at this moment said, I am going to Greece. And I said in my message back to her, I know how important Greece is for you. This you find solace was the word I used. And she said, it replenishes my soul. So this is time where she goes to be replenishing her soul, looking after self. So it's not necessarily a 5 or 10 minute thing. It can be longer. Now, in the case of these two women, they are both able to do this. And that's clear. You know, I'm not making any excuses or any sending. This is what they are. Not everybody can do this. I understand that. But they both know that they've got these two releases, if you like, where they can be regenerated, replenished, whatever it is. So identify for you as a leader what it is for you that you need to have to be able to regenerate, replenish, move on, and look after yourself. Phoebe, please.
Yeah, Graham, I was just listening to, that the word, that is what the word coming to my mind is what energizes you.
Yeah.
What energizes you to take and move ahead, and what bring you grounded to the realities and reflect. So quite often, as we are trying to say that, self-care is critical because you are the instrument which you are carrying regularly to the workplace or at home. And if that instrument is not effective to think properly, to analyze well, to share thoughts, to check on the assumptions, you are going to be less effective in that space. So that makes the self-care part critical for each and every one of us. As I mentioned, leadership is everyone's business, and there was a couple of studies which have looked into, how when we are not taking care, how it is going to impact the cost in the workplace. We have also have to see, as a leader, what is my cost I am creating in my workplace, sometimes because of not having enough self-care. Another aspect which I just want to highlight is, I read it in Twitter, if if something is impacting your mental peace, that is costly. Look into that. What is that? And see if you can work around and get help to what we call overcome
Yeah.
that impact. That is what is impacting you, because as I mentioned, what is impacting you mentally is going to be very costly. So as leaders, one is as prepare your boundaries on whatever action you are doing,
Yeah.
so that you are taking care of the people. There is Mohammed, when you mentioned about a program which is coming to my mind is called a program in INSEAD called CEO Recycling. So it is facilitated by Professor Manfred Ketz de Vries, and I listened to him, and he was saying that if I can bring change to one leader who is heading an organization in the thought process, that is going to impact and support, maybe if it is 1,000 employees in that workplace, or if it is 10,000, if it is 100,000 employees in that workplace. So a change in the thought process of one leader who is leading an organization have massive impact on the employees and the stakeholders they are serving.
Yeah, that's really good. There's one
Beautiful.
thing that goes through my mind before we wrap up, and that is that there is value in having coaches, as we all know, and the leader can then download and debrief and be helped through these areas of concern that they may have if they've got a coach. And this can make life a lot better for them. Leadership is everyone's business. Self-care is leaders' business, and that's for everybody as well. So I want all of you, everybody who's listening, to be aware of the importance of self-care. And I'm so pleased that Mohammed suggested this discussion today, because it's very real. And the more that leaders, as we touched on, have relationships with the people that they are leading, the more they can discuss issues, the more they can reduce any conflict, reduce any anxiety, reduce any stress and concerns. I don't believe leaders have stress. I believe that the best leaders lead a wonderful, successful life. But when it does occur, look after yourselves. Gentlemen, thank you for your insight. And I wish you a self-care week ahead. And I look forward to being with both of you again next week. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Vivi. Thank you,
See you
Mohammed.
next week. Thank you.
Thank you.